Hi, and welcome into this FreightWaves Now community update. Today is Tuesday, so we're talking check call, all things 3PL and brokerages. And we're talking to the Renaissance woman herself, Mary O'Connell, the woman who knows these things better than anybody. Mary, how are you doing this morning?
I'm stellar, Isaiah. It's always a good day when you start it off with Isaiah.
I mean, I can't disagree with that, but I'm sure there might be some that do, mainly my mom, but we won't get into that right now. What we will get into is talking about marketing with 3PLs and brokerages and kind of getting right into it. Marketing is really important because it's how companies can promote themselves, help get new customers. Is there a way that they can do that where they're getting the most return on their investment when it comes to marketing?
Oh, absolutely. So this is something that I feel like is not necessarily talked about that often in the brokerage space, because everybody needs marketing, but it's not really as much of a revenue driver as, making a couple $100 per load of margin out on the sales floor. So it's something that everyone has, but everyone hates to necessarily spend money on, but it's super crucial and important. So, I think that really it is something that is kind of often overlooked or thought about as kind of like a secondary thing, like a means to an end, if you will. But there are some pretty impressive ways that you can, make the most out of your marketing budget, even if you are a one-person operation or you have a smaller marketing budget. Basically, it's about maximizing your presence, and it doesn't have to always be, conferences are great, but those are, some expensive price tags. And especially when it comes to other sponsorship things. But there's some things that you can do as simple as, just doing some Google ads or some boosts on social media. And that's really important before you go that far, you have to know kind of what the messages you want to send and how you're going to find the people that you want to find. So kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, this is what we do really well, and this is what we want to broadcast to people that we do really well. So for example, if I'm someone that specializes in flatbed or anything like that, I'm going to kind of adjust some of my marketing materials to say, hey, I'm really good at this one thing. So start there, and then we can look at some of the other things that I can offer you. So it's kind of lead with your strengths, and then there's some pretty inexpensive ways that you can, sell yourself and get yourself to the right people.
And speaking of the inexpensive ways, what are some of the more inexpensive ways that you've seen that have worked out really well for other companies?
So honestly, some of it could really just be some of that organic growth type of things. Like we'll see people. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm a sucker for those day in the life videos, or the my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5, or the 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. And you could just get a little bit of glimpse in people's lives and stuff like that. But that being said, like there's no reason that somebody on their company's social media can't do something like that. And I know that there's been times where I've seen someone do that, and I'm like, oh, it looks like a really cool place to work. So not only is that a free way of advertising, that's a free way of advertising your kind of company as a place to work for employees, but also, if enough people see it, maybe it'll get to the right person at the shipper, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that loves watching the day in the life videos. But in a more real sense, you could start up a little blog post or do some white papers or provide some niche industry research that you can then turn around and say, hey, look, I have this cute little 5-page thing that we've researched and typed up, and maybe we put a banner ad somewhere and people can click on it and see. That's a pretty easy way to do it, because you already have all this knowledge and this information. It's not too much of a strain on your resources to type it up, make it look a little bit pretty, and whip up a little banner ad and send it out there. And Google Ads, you can do a lot with $100. Like that'll get you pretty far. So that's a pretty low cost investment, versus obviously like ordering swag and going to a conference. You're looking at multiple thousands of dollars there.
And a big thing about marketing is really knowing your audience, making sure that you're promoting yourself to the right people. What kind of demographics do you think that the supply chain should really focus on when it comes to their marketing for the brokers and the 3PLs in the space?
So I think it's really, really important. Demographics obviously is something that everybody struggles with because in supply chain and freight brokerage, you're not necessarily looking for, 20 somethings that have a certain level of, of discretionary income. That's not always, that's a little bit easier to sort out for consumers, those type of demographics when because when you're a 3PL or a freight broker, you're looking for certain size shippers, and that's not really something that you can like just say, hey, I want only these shippers to look at me. But it's just a matter of kind of finding those events or those places that the right people will be at. So whether it's your procurement manager, your shipping manager, or whatever that is going to be the first point of contact for you, wherever finding those places that they frequent are, that's going to be the best place to start. Whether it's industry events, whether it's LinkedIn, that's been an invaluable tool lately. And LinkedIn is free. You can pay for LinkedIn Premium if you want, but for the most part, you don't need a huge amount of money to start a LinkedIn page and start adding content to the community and being seen as a knowledgeable leader in this space. So a lot of it just comes from consistency. So making sure that kind of what message you want to put out there and kind of drill down on what type of people you want to find and what your end goal is. So if you know that, hey, I'm a dry van shipper, but we're really looking to add some retailers, like some clothing retailers. Okay, well then maybe I'm going to go to a retail conference, or maybe I'm going to start writing some blog posts about retail supply chain and try and share those on LinkedIn or any other places. It's really about sticking to what you know and your knowledge, and then kind of showing yourself as an expert in that field. So I would say that your demographics breakdown for your supply chain and freight brokerage side is a little different than it typically is, but it's still very important to kind of identify those areas and show up in those places that those people are going to be at.
I want to jump back over to the spending a little bit. What would you say to a company that maybe overspends on a marketing campaign without seeing the necessary return that they were looking for?
We've all been there. We've all said, okay, I'm going to spend like $1,000. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to this. Let's just say I'm going to go to this conference. I'm going to set up a booth and I'm going to get all these leads and it's going to be an amazing time. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's about the people that are there. Sometimes it's really about the environment that's there too. I mean, when you go to events, you can always tell when some people are spending more, when it's a down market, when people are tightening their budget. They're not necessarily looking for new unknowns, because typically unknowns come with risk. And when it's a already or a tight market that's not really risk friendly, people aren't going to take those risks. So you'll have that. And then also maybe sometimes you'll launch like this incredible ad campaign that you have spent all this time on and all this money on, and you have new graphics and videos and everything like that. And then it just falls flat. I mean, it happens. It happens. So the biggest thing that you can do is learn, capture as much data as you can, say, okay, well, it worked up until this point, or just straight out of the gate, it never worked. That way, okay, well, this is a very expensive mistake for us to make, but we're not going to make it again. And you can start working on some other things. That's why I'm a sucker for starting small. I'm a sucker for, trying out a couple things, figure out what works, and then kind of building from what works successfully from there. Because, it's not the wild, wild west of I'm sticking flyers on doors anymore. We have the data behind the marketing now that we can say, okay, this is successful, this is not. And I would really try to partner with people that understand the importance of that data and can also help provide you some of that feedback that you desperately need to know if your ad campaign is working to the fullest extent or not.
All right, Mary, being the Renaissance woman that you are, I want to ask you this question and really get your advice on this. If you were starting a brand from scratch, where would you start and what would be the first thing that you would do?
Well, that is a very daunting task. And personally, I don't know that I would ever want to start something completely from scratch because that just to me means a lot of sleepless nights. But that being said, I do think that, there is we talk about this a lot on the episode, and just kind of sticking to what you know. So brag about what you're good at. And if it's not something that you're good at, don't advertise it. Like, yeah, obviously, if you're really good at moving produce, you can move dry van shipment too. Like you can do the other stuff, but stick with what you know, build that base from there. So for example, if you have a bunch of refrigerated freight that you specialize in, go to those refrigerated freight customers and say, hey, we have a dry van contingent that we do. You already like us for our refrigerated freight. Give me 5 to 10 loads and just let me show you what we can do on the dry van side as well. And so that's something that you can do that doesn't even necessarily require money. You just go to your customer and say, hey, we've got this. But I think if I were to start from day one, I would sit there and I would sit all the sales team down and say, what works? What verbiage works? What type of selling works? Like, what type of materials can I get you that will help make your job easier? Because they're out there, they're talking to customers all day long. They're talking to prospective clients. They know what to say, what not to say, kind of how to approach those subjects. So I would start with them because what I think might be a great idea might not be something that customers are even interested in hearing about. And they might have a certain phrase that I can take and then, run with. So it's something that I would definitely want to start there, especially because I don't know why in most 3PLs and freight brokerages, sales and marketing are always mad at each other. So I would like to fix that because those are the two that need to actually be working as closely together.
And Mary, for those who tune in to Check Call, they know that you ask some goofy questions when it comes to food. But the most notably, is a hot dog a sandwich or is cereal a soup? But I have a question for you
Mm-hmm.
today. It's not as good as one of those, but what is
Okay.
the best sandwich to eat on President's Day, considering President's Day was yesterday?
I'm going to say the best sandwich to eat on President's Day. Well, I mean, I guess that would just be the best sandwich to eat any day, wouldn't it? Because I don't think there was like a specific sandwich tied to a specific president. And for some reason, all I'm thinking of is apples from George Washington, which is a very weird thing to think about. Um, I would have to say probably, and this is not because it's President's Day, it's just because it's a really good sandwich. I would have to say probably a Cubano, like, get a little pulled pork, little ham, little pressed.
I'm not
It's
mad at
top
it.
notch.
I'm not mad. I was going to say a Reuben, so well, a little different, but the Cubano, you can't go wrong with that either.
You really can't. You really can't. I think I have found, I believe, the best Cubano in St. Louis, but there's a lot of debate as to what the actual best is.
Well, you got to come to Chattanooga and we'll show you what a real Cubano is, okay?
Alrighty.
Mary, thanks again for joining us. If people want to tune in to Check Call today, how can they do that?
Yeah, just keep watching FreightWaves TV right here on YouTube. The new episode comes out at 12:30 today, and we are joined by Sean McGillicuddy at Thai, and we are breaking down all things marketing from the expert himself.
Mary, thanks again for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.